He noted, "To Flaky, Aquanet has the grip, the shine, the protection." Albert smiled. It was a predatory smile. He had defeated the first line of defense with a $3 can of hairspray. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was a ghost in the machine of the American economy. Chapter 3: The Pawn's Opening. David Goldberg was a man who lived in the margins of Lawndale. He was a longtime friend of Albert's, a man who appreciated the quiet life, but was always plagued by the lack of funds to enjoy it. He arrived at Albert's townhouse one Tuesday afternoon, expecting a game of chess. "Al," David stopped in the kitchen doorway, the scent of chemical adhesive hitting him like a wall. "Why is there a rack of hundreds in your oven? Are we eating Ben Franklin for dinner?" "Low heat," Albert explained, not looking up from a specialized paper cutter. "It sets the ink. It gives it that slightly toasted, circulated feel. Take one. Dave, tell me what you see." David reached out and picked up a bill. It was warm, like it had just come out of a dryer. He ran his thumb over Ben Franklin's coat. He felt the ridges Albert had simulated through a clever layering of digital ink. He held it up to the light and saw the ghost of the watermark staring back. "Is this real?" David whispered. "It's better than real, Dave," Albert said, finally looking up. His eyes were burning with a terrifying pride. "The real stuff is old. It's clunky. This is digital. This is the future." David felt a cold sweat on the back of his neck. "You're going to get us killed, Al, or worse. Sent back to the yard. You remember the smell of that place, the gray walls, and the way the sun only hits the yard for an hour a day. I'm not going back for some printer ink project. No one is getting caught," Albert said, standing up and towering over his friend. He walked over to David and put a hand on his shoulder. "The Secret Service is looking for guys with offset printing presses and engraved plates. They're looking for the wolf or some international syndicate. They aren't looking for a guy with an HP, inkjet, and a can of Aquanet." Albert leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I need someone I can trust to help with the assembly. The gluing, the cutting, the hairspray. $60 an hour. Dave, cash, real cash at first, then whatever you want." David looked at the money in the oven. It represented a life he'd never had. No more scraping by. No more dirt for pennies. "What's the plan for getting it out there?" David asked. "The drug model," Albert said simply. "Pyramid distribution. We build a network so wide that by the time a bill hits a bank, the person who spent it doesn't even know your name." Chapter 4: The Broker and the Best Friend. While David Goldberg handled the assembly, Albert needed someone who could bridge the gap between his laboratory and the streets. He needed someone who knew how to move product without attracting the wrong kind of attention. He turned to Paul McCory. Paul and Albert had been best friends since they were 17. They were the kind of friends who knew each other's silences as well as their voices. Paul had always stayed on the edges of Albert's previous dirt, but this was different. This wasn't bank fraud. This was alchemy. Al, you're playing with fire, Paul said, sitting in Albert's new living room, surrounded by the hum of 3 synchronized printers. Fire is what cooks the food, Paul, Albert replied. I'm offering you the broker position. You buy from me for 15. You sell it to the street for 30. You don't even have to leave your car. You just meet the right people, and you let the money work for you. Paul looked at Albert. He saw the cockiness, the intelligence, and the absolute certainty. For a long time, Paul had been a law-abiding man, but the sight of the Mercedes parked outside Albert's townhouse was a powerful argument. All right, Paul said, but I'm not doing dirt with anyone else. Just you. The distribution chain was complete. Paul McCory and Troy Stroud became the twin engines of Albert's economy. Troy, a man with a long-standing relationship with Albert from their time in the system, handled the darker side of the business, the gangs. Chapter 5. The Pyramid of Shadows. In the streets of Los Angeles, the H to H38 notes became a currency of their own. Selling counterfeit cash worked exactly like selling drugs, a trade many LA gangs were already intimately familiar with. Only take one at a time, the gang members were instructed by Troy Stroud. You go into a Target, a Macy's, a Walmart. You buy a candy bar, a pack of socks. You give them the 100. You get $90 in clean change. That's your profit. Doing business with gangs ensured secrecy. In that world, ratting wasn't just a breach of trust, it was a death sentence. The hierarchy of the pyramid kept the truth buried deep. The kids spending the bills at the mall didn't know Troy Stroud. Troy Stroud didn't let the gangs know about the townhouse in Lawndale. And nobody, absolutely nobody, knew the name Albert Talton. By late 2006, the H to H38 notes were no longer a trickle. They were a tsunami. They were appearing in grocery stores in Ohio, gas stations in Florida, and high-end boutiques in New York. Albert Talton was no longer the man in the grease-stained rag. He was a king. He moved into a comfortable townhouse in Lawndale, but his eyes were on the hills. He bought a home for his girlfriend, Allison Sewell, in the expensive LA suburb of Woodland Hills. He filled it with luxury, including 7 flat-screen TVs, one for every room, even the kitchen. Then came the cars, to Mercedes-Benzes, and finally, the crowning achievement, a silver Aston Martin Vantage. It was a $110,000 piece of British engineering that hummed with the sound of pure, unadulterated success. Al, where is all this coming from? Allison asked one night, looking at the silver car in the driveway. I'm a consultant. Baby, Albert lied with a smile. I'm consulting for the government on how to make things better. Chapter 6. The Blue and the Red. In the LA field office of the U.S. Secret Service, Special Agent Matthew Mayo was staring at a map of Los Angeles. It was covered in red pins, each one representing a reported H to H38 counterfeit. It's centered in the South Bay. Mayo said, "He was a man of logic and persistence."